I remarried after my husband died. I never thought I would say those words out loud. After 46 years of marriage, I believed my life was over with Daniel. Then Thomas came along. He was kind, gentle, and somehow understood the emptiness I had felt for years. We met at the library, started with coffee, then long walks. Loneliness can be heavier than grief, so I married him. 3 weeks after the wedding, I saw the scar. I wasn't trying to look, but there it was on his ribcage, a crescent shape. My heart stopped. Daniel had that exact scar from a boating accident when he was 24. I had traced it with my fingers for decades. I tried to ignore it. Later, I asked casually, "Thomas, how did you get that scar?" He paused, just for a second. "Boating accident," he said. I forced myself to believe it was coincidence, but that night, I couldn't sleep. I watched him move, the way he tapped twice on the nightstand, the way he breathed. Daniel had done the exact same things. Thomas hates cinnamon. Daniel hated cinnamon. Thomas calls me Maggie. Only Daniel ever called me that. Coincidences don't pile like this. Something was wrong. If you're listening to my story right now, subscribe to this channel, because what happened next will make you question everything. A few days later, I went to the attic. I opened Daniel's old medical file and found a hospital photo from his accident. Crescent-shaped scar, slight upward curve, tiny notch at the center. That evening, I watched Thomas as he took off his shirt. Identical, not similar, identical. I checked old bank records from the month Daniel died. A large withdrawal, one I never authorized. The next morning, Thomas walked into the kitchen and said, "Good morning, Maggie." The tone, the smile, it wasn't Thomas. It was Daniel. And in that moment, a terrifying thought entered my mind. What if my husband never died? And if he didn't? Then who did I bury? I didn't confront him. Not yet. Because what I found in his locked drawer the next day proved this was no coincidence. The next morning, I waited until Thomas left for his weekly chess club. My hands shook as I went to his study. I had seen the scar, the same habits, the same nickname, but now I needed proof. There, in the desk drawer, was a small locked box. My heart pounded. I had never seen him keep anything so hidden. I found the key taped under the drawer. Slowly, carefully, I unlocked it. Inside were old identification papers, passports, and photographs. I picked up one of them. The photo showed a younger Daniel. Same eyes, same crooked smile, and the scar. I dropped the photo, my hands trembling. I realized, for the first time, I wasn't imagining things. This was not a coincidence. I heard the front door open. Thomas was back early. My stomach churned. I shoved the box behind the chair and pretended to read. "Margaret." His voice was calm to calm. I stood slowly. "Thomas, can we talk?" He looked at me, smiled. "About what?" "The box. The files." "Daniel, you?" My voice cracked. He paused, just for a second. Then he said softly, "I didn't want you to find out yet." My heart stopped. "What do you mean?" He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he walked over, placed a hand on mine. "I had to do things to protect you. Everything I did was for us." I shook my head. "Protect me? From what?" He looked away, then back. "You're not ready for the truth." "Not yet." But I had already guessed. I saw it in his eyes. He had lied about dying. He had staged everything. The funeral, the papers, even the grief I had lived through alone. And the most terrifying thought hit me. If he was alive, then who was in that coffin? My hands were cold. I felt my knees weaken. My heart raced. The man standing in front of me was either Daniel or someone who had taken his place perfectly. If you're listening to this story, make sure to subscribe now, because what happened next changed my life completely, and you won't believe it. That evening, I tried to act normal, but inside, I was planning. I had to know the truth. I couldn't let another night pass without answers. After Thomas went to bed, I quietly returned to the study. I opened more files, hidden letters, legal documents, and even an old will. Everything pointed to one thing: Daniel had faked his death. But why? Was it money, revenge, a secret life I didn't know about? I had no idea. And the longer I stared at the documents, the more the room seemed to close in. The next morning, I confronted him again. Thomas, or should I call you Daniel? Why did you do this? He looked at me, calm as ever. You'll understand soon. But for now, you must trust me. I couldn't. I wanted to run. But I stayed because I needed the answers. That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind kept spinning around the locked drawer, the photographs, and the documents. I needed answers. I needed the truth. The next morning, I decided I couldn't wait any longer. I walked into the living room while Thomas was reading the newspaper. My hands shook, but my voice was firm. Thomas, or Daniel, I need you to tell me everything. No lies, no half-truths. He looked up at me. For a moment, his face was unreadable. Then he sighed, setting the newspaper down. You're right, he said. You deserve the truth. I sat down, gripping my hands. Go on. He took a deep breath. Daniel didn't die. I had to fake my death. There were dangers, threats, people who wanted to hurt me. Or you. I couldn't risk it. I had to disappear for a while. I felt my stomach twist. Disappear. So the funeral, the death certificate, it was all staged. Yes, his voice was calm, almost too calm. I couldn't tell anyone. Even my family didn't know. I thought it was the only way to keep you safe. I never wanted to hurt you. Every choice I made, I did it for us. I shook my head. Safe? You let me grieve alone for 2 years. I believed you were dead. I cried every night for you. I know. He looked down, his hand trembling slightly. I hated every moment you were alone. But there was no other way. I had to make sure whoever was after me couldn't find you. And I never expected that you would notice the scar, the habits, the nickname so quickly. My heart raced. So all the coincidences, the scar, the habits, the cinnamon, all real? Yes, he admitted. I couldn't hide it completely. You know me too well. I took a deep breath. Why come back now? Why marry me again as Thomas? He looked at me, eyes filled with sorrow. Because I couldn't stay hidden forever. I wanted to protect you, but I also wanted to live with you. I wanted us to have the life we were supposed to have. Tears welled up in my eyes. So everything I believed, everything I mourned, was a lie. No, he said softly. Your grief was real. Your love was real. And that will never change. I sat silently, trying to process. 2 years of pain, fear, and confusion boiled down to a secret he carried alone. But even after his confession, a part of me couldn't fully trust him. The fear, the betrayal, the questions, they lingered. If you're listening to this story, subscribe now, because in the next part, you'll hear the darker truth. There's more to Daniel's disappearance than he just told me, and it will shock you. That night, I went to bed, lying next to the man I loved and feared at the same time. I knew the next step was coming and I had to face it, no matter how terrifying it was. I couldn't sleep that night. Even after Thomas's confession, an annoying feeling wouldn't leave me. Something felt off. The next morning, I decided to check the funeral records again. I wanted proof of what had happened. What I discovered made my blood run cold. The death certificate, real. But the name on the burial permit wasn't Daniel's full legal name. Someone else had been buried in that coffin. Someone unknown. I gasped. My hands shook as I called the cemetery office. Who was buried in plot 46? I asked, trying to sound calm. There was a clerical error, the woman said. The body was registered under a different name. It happens sometimes with older records. Error, I didn't believe it. Something was being hidden. I went to the cemetery that afternoon. The grave was real. The flowers were faded, but the stone still bore Daniel's name. I knelt, running my fingers over the letters. My heart felt hollow. If he had faked his death, then who was in the coffin? When Thomas came home, I confronted him again. Who did I bury? He looked at me with a mixture of sorrow and fear. It wasn't meant to happen this way, he said. I felt my throat tighten. It wasn't meant to happen. Explain. He sighed. Daniel or Thomas, I had enemies. I couldn't risk them finding him or you. So yes, someone else, someone unclaimed, was placed in the coffin. I know it sounds cruel. I never wanted you to feel this pain. I stepped back, my vision blurred. You let me grieve for someone who wasn't even there? Yes, his voice broke. I thought it was the only way to keep you safe. The house felt colder than ever. My life, my memories, everything had been built on lies. I didn't know whether to scream or collapse. I realized that the man standing in front of me, my husband, my Thomas, was both the protector and the deceiver. If you are listening to this story, make sure to subscribe, because the next part will reveal the darkest secret of all. You won't believe what he did to keep the truth hidden. That night, I couldn't sleep. I thought about the coffin, the photographs, the documents. I replayed every moment of the last 2 years, and a terrifying thought came to me. How much of my life was real? How much was carefully manipulated by the man I trusted? I knew one thing for certain. I had to find out everything before it was too late. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about the coffin, the documents, and Thomas's words. Every memory from the past 2 years felt like a trap I had walked into blindly. I decided I needed answers. I needed the full truth. I went through every drawer, every old photo, every note he had ever left behind. And then I found a letter, hidden in a false bottom of his study drawer. It was addressed to me, in Daniel's handwriting. My love, if you are reading this, it means I had no choice. I had to disappear to protect you. But there are things you must know. Trust no one completely. Not even me. I dropped the letter. My hands shook violently. He was warning me and confessing at the same time. I confronted him that evening. Thomas or Daniel, this letter, what is it? What haven't you told me? He looked at me, calm, almost eerily calm. Everything I did was to protect us. But yes, there's more. The people after me, the threats, they weren't imaginary. And the person in the coffin, it wasn't random. That body was someone who would disappear without anyone noticing. Someone expendable. My stomach dropped. You let me mourn a stranger. You tricked everyone. Yes, he said softly. But I never imagined you would uncover the truth this quickly. I realized then that he had controlled every moment, my grief, my life, my trust. Every detail, every coincidence, every habit, all carefully orchestrated. I felt sick, betrayed, angry, but underneath it all, I still loved him. You could have told me, I whispered. I couldn't risk it, he said. You might have left, and then I would have failed to protect you. I sat down, trying to breathe. I loved him, yet I hated the lies. I wanted to run, to escape this nightmare. But part of me needed to stay and see it through. If you are listening to my story, subscribe now. Part 6 will reveal the final truth, the confrontation, and what really happened the day Daniel supposedly died. You won't believe it. That night, I lay awake, thinking of all the secrets he had kept. The betrayal, the manipulation. Yet the love we shared was real. I didn't know what the next day would bring, but I knew I couldn't ignore it. I had to face the truth. The morning sunlight streamed through the curtains, but I didn't feel warmth. My hands were shaking as I waited for Thomas. Today, I would get the full truth, no more half confessions, no more lies. I found him in the kitchen, making coffee. He looked up, calm, but his eyes betrayed a hint of fear. Margaret, he said softly. Daniel, it's time, I whispered. Everything. Tell me everything. No more lies. He nodded. Then he began to speak, slowly, carefully. The night I died, there were people who wanted to hurt me. Criminals, dangerous men who had been tracking me for years. I faked my death to protect you, to protect our life. The coffin. It held someone unclaimed, someone who would disappear without anyone noticing. I swallowed hard. So, my grief, the funeral, all lies. Yes, he admitted. But every day I was gone, I thought of you. I never stopped loving you. I wanted to return safely, but I couldn't risk you discovering me too soon. Tears rolled down my cheeks. And all the coincidences, the scar, the habits, calling me Maggie, they were unavoidable, he said. I didn't expect you to notice so quickly. And I couldn't hide the scars. I didn't want to hide the scars. They were part of who I am, who we are. I stood, trembling. And the money, the documents, the locked drawers, he reached for my hand. All necessary. I had to cover my tracks, keep our enemies confused, and protect our life. I know it seems cruel, but I did it for you, Margaret. Every choice, every lie. It was for us. I looked into his eyes. Part of me hated him. Part of me loved him more than ever. He had tricked me, manipulated me, and yet he had kept me safe. Do you realize what you put me through? I asked. I do, he said, voice breaking. And I am sorry. I will spend the rest of my life proving that everything I did was to protect the love we have. I took a deep breath. The tension, the fear, the betrayal. It was finally fading. I understood now. He had been my husband all along. The love, the life, the memories, real. But the deception, the secrecy, it was terrifying. If you're listening to my story, make sure to subscribe because stories like this, they remind us that love can survive even the darkest secrets. I stepped closer, feeling his hands in mine. The scar, the habits, everything. It was Daniel, alive, real, and finally, safe. This was the truth, the full truth, and I could finally breathe. Thank you for listening to my story. If you stayed with me through all 6 parts, you now know. Sometimes love survives even when death and lies seem unstoppable. Until next time, goodbye. I'll see you in the next video.